The impossible mission begins. Captain Ryan Carter stood inside the war room of the Galactic Alliance base. The air smelled of metal and smoke, the scent of a war that had gone on for too long. Across the room, a holographic map displayed a fortress surrounded by thick walls, guarded by heavily armed warriors. "Your mission is simple," General Harlow said, his voice rough with age. "Get in, get the princess. Get out." Ryan crossed his arms. If it was simple, she wouldn't still be there. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the truth. Many had tried, and all had failed. Princess Zyra, the last heir of the Zarvian Empire, was being held captive by Warlord Korvac. If she died, the Zarvians would have no leader, and the war would end in total destruction. "You're our best soldier, Ryan," Harlow continued. "If anyone can do this, it's you." Ryan exhaled slowly. He had fought in countless battles, survived missions where others had fallen. But this felt like a death trap. Still, he had never turned his back on a mission before. "When do I leave?" he asked. The general nodded. "Your ship is ready. One more thing." He handed Ryan a small communicator. "If something goes wrong, we won't be able to help you." Ryan smirked. Wouldn't be the first time. Into enemy territory. Hours later, Ryan's sleek black stealth ship moved through the darkness of space, approaching Korvac's fortress. The planet below was a wasteland of fire and rock, its sky filled with storms that crackled with blue lightning. He checked his coordinates. The fortress was in sight. Ryan activated the cloaking system, making his ship nearly invisible. But as he neared the landing zone, his warning system beeped. "Proximity alert. System interference detected." Ryan's eyes narrowed. That's not good. Before he could react, his ship's controls went dead. The engines sputtered. The power shut down. He was falling. Crash landing. Ryan gritted his teeth as his ship plummeted through the stormy sky. The wind roared around him, lightning flashing dangerously close. He gripped the manual controls, trying to steady the descent. With a loud crash, the ship slammed into the rocky ground, sliding through the dirt before coming to a stop. Smoke filled the cockpit. Red emergency lights flashed. Ryan coughed, unbuckling himself. He grabbed his weapons and survival gear before forcing the door open. He was still alive. That was a start. Outside, the air was thick with the smell of burning metal. His ship was ruined. There was no going back now. He tapped his communicator. Static. No signal. Ryan clenched his jaw. He was alone. But that wasn't the worst part. In the distance, he saw moving lights, search patrols. They had seen the crash. They were coming for him. Infiltration. Ryan sprinted toward the rocky cliffs, his boots crunching against the dirt. He kept low, moving like a shadow between the jagged rocks. The fortress loomed ahead, its black walls stretching high into the sky. Guards patrolled the entrance, their glowing red eyes scanning for intruders. Ryan studied the defenses. A direct assault was suicide. But he wasn't here to fight an army. He was here to sneak in, get the princess, and get out. He spotted a drainage tunnel near the fortress wall, half covered by sand. It was small, but he could fit through. Better than walking through the front door. He crouched, crawling inside. The tunnel smelled damp and rotten, but he pushed forward. After several minutes, he reached a metal grate. With careful movements, he unscrewed the bolts and slipped through. He was inside. A shocking discovery. Ryan pressed against the dark walls, listening. The fortress was quiet, but the air felt heavy. Something was wrong. He pulled out a small device, hacking into the security system. A map of the facility flickered on the screen, showing prisoner locations. He found Zyra's cell and frowned. The record said she wasn't here. Ryan's pulse quickened. Had they already moved her? Was this a trap? Before he could decide what to do, a voice crackled through his earpiece, one he didn't recognize. "She is not where they think she is. Trust no one." Ryan froze. Who was that? How did they know about his mission? Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Ryan pressed himself into the shadows as a group of guards passed. Their armor was thick, their weapons deadly. If they saw him, he wouldn't stand a chance. As soon as they were gone, Ryan moved fast. He had no choice now. He needed to find out where Xyra really was. The deeper he went, the darker the halls became. He could feel it. Something was terribly wrong in this place. Then, up ahead, he heard something. A scream. Ryan's grip tightened on his weapon. He wasn't alone. And whoever was screaming needed help. A dangerous escape plan. Ryan pressed his back against the cold metal wall, his heart pounding in his chest. The scream echoed down the dark corridor, sharp and filled with terror. It wasn't just a random prisoner. Someone was being tortured. His mission was to save Princess Xyra, but his instincts told him to move toward the sound. If the warlord Gorvak's men were interrogating someone, that person might have information, something that could help him find the princess. He crept forward, his boots making no sound against the metal floor. The fortress was dimly lit, the glow of red emergency lights flickering against the walls. Shadows danced as he moved, and he kept his breathing slow and steady. Ahead, a reinforced door stood slightly open. Ryan peeked inside. A horror scene unfolded before him. A Zarvian alien, one of Xyra's people, was strapped to a metal chair, his body covered in burns and bruises. His long silver hair was matted with blood, his breathing ragged. Standing over him was a massive guard, his armor gleaming under the flickering lights. The interrogator held an electrified baton, still crackling with energy. "Where is the princess?" the guard growled, striking the prisoner again. The alien groaned but did not speak. He was barely conscious, but he refused to give in. Ryan clenched his jaw. He had two choices: keep moving toward the princess, or risk everything to save this man. His decision was made in an instant. A silent takedown. Ryan moved fast. He unsheathed his combat knife and slipped into the room, staying low. The interrogator was too focused on his prisoner to notice. With precision, Ryan grabbed the guard from behind, pressing his blade against the weak spot between the armor plates. He clamped a hand over the alien's mouth, silencing his gasp. A single, swift move. The guard collapsed. Ryan caught the alien before he could fall, carefully unstrapping him from the chair. "Can you walk?" Ryan whispered. The alien coughed, his voice weak. "Not well." Ryan scanned the room. He had no time. Reinforcements would come soon. He grabbed a nearby stim injector, pressing it into the alien's arm. The healing compound would help, but not much. "We need to move," Ryan said. "Do you know where they're keeping the princess?" The alien's bloodshot eyes locked onto Ryan's. "Not in the main prison. She's in the research wing. Underground." Ryan's stomach twisted. Underground. That meant heavy security, locked doors, and dangerous experiments. This was worse than he thought. The enemy is closing in. Before they could leave, an alarm blared through the fortress. Someone had found the guard's body. Ryan cursed under his breath. Time to go. He slung the alien's arm over his shoulder and helped him walk. The corridors outside were now filled with flashing red lights. A robotic voice echoed through the speakers. "Intruder detected. Secure all exits. Deploy all units." Ryan pushed forward, moving into the shadows. Footsteps thundered in the distance. He had to think fast. They reached a maintenance hatch. It was locked. No time to hack it. Ryan raised his pistol and fired. The hatch blew open, and they climbed inside, descending a ladder into the lower levels of the fortress. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. The walls were no longer metal but rough stone, ancient and eerie. They were now in the true heart of Gorvak's fortress. A sinister secret. Ryan and the alien, who had introduced himself as Lirak, moved cautiously through the underground corridors. Unlike the upper fortress, this place was silent. Too silent. The dim lights flickered, revealing strange markings on the walls, symbols Ryan didn't recognize. The air smelled sterile, mixed with something foul. Why would they keep her here? Ryan muttered. Lyrak's breathing was heavy. Because Gorvak is experimenting on her. He wants to break her mind, turn her into a weapon. Ryan's fists tightened. He had heard of warlords using extreme measures, but this was beyond cruelty. They reached a thick security door. Beyond it, Ryan could hear faint humming, the sound of machines. Lyrak held up a shaky hand. The lab is on the other side. Ryan examined the panel. It required a biometric scan. There was no way they could open it without setting off an alarm. Then Lyrak grinned weakly. I have an idea, but you won't like it. A dangerous gamble. Ryan watched as Lyrak limped toward a control panel on the wall. He pulled a small device from his belt, attaching it to the system. The screen flickered. What are you doing? Ryan asked. Lyrak smirked, creating a distraction. Before Ryan could stop him, Lyrak activated the device. An explosion rocked the hallway, shaking the entire underground lab. Ryan's eyes widened. You just alerted everyone. Lyrak coughed, smiling. Exactly. Now, they'll think the intruder is outside the lab, not inside. Ryan shook his head, but had to admit it was clever. Risky, but clever. The security door clicked open. Let's go, Lyrak said. Ryan took a deep breath and stepped through. Inside the lab. The underground lab was unlike anything Ryan had seen before. Bright white lights illuminated the sterile room. Strange machines hummed, their screens displaying data in an alien language. And in the center of the room, inside a glowing stasis chamber, was Princess Syra. Ryan's heart pounded. He had found her. She was suspended in a thick blue liquid, her body floating as if asleep. Wires were connected to her head, arms, and legs. Her silver-white hair drifted inside the chamber, and her face looked peaceful. Too peaceful. Ryan stepped closer. She's alive. Lyrak frowned. Barely. They're draining her mind, turning her power into a weapon. Ryan's grip tightened on his weapon. Then let's get her out. But before he could move, a deep mechanical voice boomed from the speakers. Intruders detected. Initiating lockdown. Heavy blast doors slammed shut behind them. Ryan turned, raising his weapon. Footsteps echoed down the hallway. The sound of something big. Something not human. And then, the monster guarding the lab stepped into the light. It was massive. Half machine, half beast. Its glowing red eyes locked onto Ryan. Lyrak whispered, "We have a problem." Ryan exhaled slowly. "Yeah, we do." The unexpected ally. Ryan took a steady breath, his grip tightening around his blaster. The creature standing before him was unlike anything he had ever faced. A monstrous fusion of flesh and metal, its body covered in thick, plated armor. The red glow of its mechanical eyes locked onto him, analyzing, calculating. It was built to kill. The lab's alarms continued to wail, filling the underground chamber with a deafening hum. Behind him, Lyrak struggled to stand, still weak from his injuries. And in the center of the room, floating inside a glowing stasis chamber, was Princess Syra. Their objective, their reason for being here. But first, they had to survive. The beast let out a deep, guttural growl before charging forward, the ground shaking beneath its weight. Ryan dodged to the side just in time, rolling across the cold metal floor as a massive clawed hand smashed into the spot where he had just been standing. Sparks flew. "This thing doesn't mess around," Ryan muttered, pulling out his rifle. He fired 2 quick shots at the creature's head, but the bullets bounced off the armor plates like pebbles against steel. Lyrak, barely managing to stay upright, gritted his teeth. Its core, it has to have a weakness. Ryan circled the beast, keeping his movements sharp and unpredictable. His mind raced. Every machine had a weak spot. He just needed to find it before this thing tore them apart. The monster roared, raising its massive arm. A cannon emerged from its shoulder, glowing with red-hot plasma. Ryan's stomach dropped. Oh, that's bad. A fight for survival. The cannon fired. A blazing bolt of plasma sizzled through the air, missing Ryan by inches as he dove behind a metal console. The heat was intense, scorching the walls behind him. "We can't fight this thing head-on," Lyrak shouted, ducking behind a pile of equipment. Ryan's mind worked fast. The creature was a hybrid, part machine, part biological. It wasn't just a mindless drone. It had instincts, but instincts could be used against it. Then he saw it, a small exposed section near the base of its spine, where the metal plating didn't quite cover the organic tissue. "That's the target. Lyrak, I need you to distract it," Ryan called out. Lyrak groaned but nodded, picking up a broken metal rod from the floor. He limped forward, waving it in the air. "Hey, you ugly pile of scrap. Over here." The monster turned its attention toward Lyrak, its plasma cannon charging up again. Ryan didn't waste a second. He sprinted forward, sliding across the floor just as the cannon fired. The blast narrowly missed Lyrak, blowing apart a row of equipment instead. Ryan rolled onto his back and raised his weapon, aiming directly at the weak spot. One shot. One chance. He pulled the trigger. The bullet struck home. The beast screamed as electricity surged through its body. Its metal limbs convulsed, sparks flying from its joints. Smoke poured from its mouth as it collapsed onto the ground, twitching violently before going still. Ryan exhaled. That was too close. Lyrak slumped against a nearby console, breathing heavily. "Remind me to never do that again." But they weren't safe yet. Releasing the princess, Ryan turned to the stasis chamber where Princess Zyra was still suspended in glowing liquid. She looked peaceful, her silver-white hair floating around her, but her vitals on the monitor showed distress. Her body was weakening by the second. "They're draining her energy," Lyrak said, his voice grim. "If we don't get her out now, she won't survive." Ryan quickly examined the control panel. The interface was in Zarvian, but the basic functions were clear. A containment lock was in place. If they shut it off incorrectly, the system might kill her instead of releasing her. "Can you read this?" Ryan asked. Lyrak limped forward, squinting at the symbols. His fingers hovered over the controls. "I think so. But if I mess up, the entire system could self-destruct." Ryan frowned. "And if we do nothing?" Lyrak glanced at Zyra, his face dark. "She dies." There was no time to hesitate. "Do it," Ryan said. Lyrak took a deep breath and pressed a series of commands. The lights in the chamber flickered. The liquid inside began to drain. Zyra's body lowered onto a small platform as the glass tube slowly lifted. Ryan stepped forward, catching her before she could collapse. She was cold, too cold. Her breathing was faint, her body fragile. But she was alive. Zyra's eyes fluttered open, revealing deep violet irises. She stared at Ryan, dazed and confused. "Who are you?" she whispered. Ryan gave her a reassuring smile. "You're right out of here." But before she could respond, the alarms changed. A deep mechanical voice boomed through the speakers. "Primary defense unit destroyed. Deploying reinforcements." Lyrak's face paled. "Oh no." Ryan's eyes narrowed as he heard the sound of boots marching in the hallway. Dozens of them. They weren't done yet. A desperate escape. Ryan hoisted Zyra into his arms, nodding to Lyrak. "Time to go." The door burst open. Armed soldiers stormed inside. Ryan fired the first shot. The room exploded into chaos. Lyrak ducked behind cover, shooting back with what little strength he had left. Zyra, still weak, clung to Ryan as he fought his way through the enemy forces. More guards poured in. The fortress was fully mobilized now. If they didn't get out soon, they never would. Ryan spotted an emergency ventilation shaft on the ceiling. Small, but big enough for them to fit through. "Lyrak, get up there," Ryan ordered. Lyrak groaned but obeyed, climbing up first. Ryan lifted Xyra up to him, then pulled himself through just as another round of blaster fire scorched the ground where he had been standing. They crawled through the vents, moving fast. Below them, the sound of soldiers shouting filled the corridors. "We need a ship," Ryan whispered. "A fast one." Lyrak nodded. "I know where to go." Ryan smirked. "Good, because I don't plan on sticking around." The battle with the Guardian. The ventilation shaft was narrow, filled with dust and stale air. Ryan moved quickly, careful not to make too much noise. Lyrak crawled ahead, guiding them through the maze of metal ducts, while Xyra, still weak from her time in the stasis chamber, clung to Ryan's back, her breathing shallow. Below them, the fortress was in chaos. The sound of marching boots, barking orders, and alarms blaring filled the air. Warlord Gorvak's soldiers were searching for them, their voices sharp with urgency. "We need to move faster," Ryan whispered. Lyrak glanced back. "Almost there. The exit leads to a lower hangar. If we're lucky, we can steal a ship before they realize where we are." Ryan liked the sound of that. Luck was running thin, but it was better than nothing. They'd reached the end of the ventilation shaft, where a small grate led to an open hallway. Lyrak carefully pushed the grate aside and peeked through. "Clear," he whispered. Ryan helped Xyra down first, making sure she could stand on her own. She wobbled slightly but nodded. "I'm okay," she said softly, though Ryan could see the exhaustion in her violet eyes. They slipped into the hallway, staying close to the shadows. The walls here were different from the rest of the fortress. Darker, older, covered in alien symbols. It felt ancient, as if this place had existed long before Gorvak had taken control. A deep unease settled over Ryan. Something was wrong. "Where exactly are we?" he asked. Lyrak hesitated before answering. "The lower sanctum. It was built long ago, before the fortress became a prison. Some say it hides things far worse than Gorvak himself." Ryan scowled. That would have been good to know earlier. Before Lyrak could respond, a sudden rumble shook the ground beneath them. A voice, deep and unnatural, echoed through the halls. "Intruders detected, activating Guardian protocol." Xyra's face paled. "Oh no." Ryan turned just in time to see the walls shift, metal grinding against stone. A massive doorway that had once blended into the corridor suddenly opened, revealing a towering figure inside. It stepped forward, its body made of thick obsidian metal, covered in glowing red runes. It stood at least 12 feet tall, its arms heavy with ancient weaponry. Ryan's stomach dropped. "What the hell is that?" Lyrak's voice was grim. "The Guardian, a relic of the old empire, built to protect this place." The Guardian's eyes flared to life, scanning them with a glowing red light. Unregistered entities detected. Termination initiated. It moved with terrifying speed, raising an energy blade the size of a man and swinging it in a deadly arc. Ryan barely had time to react. Dancing with death. Ryan shoved Xyra and Lyrak out of the way as the blade slammed into the floor, cutting a deep scar through the metal. Sparks and debris flew everywhere. The Guardian stepped forward, raising its arm. A hidden cannon emerged from its forearm, charging with bright blue energy. Ryan's instincts screamed, "Move." He grabbed Xyra and rolled behind a pillar just as the cannon fired, a burst of plasma exploding against the opposite wall. Lyrak fired his blaster at the Guardian, but the shots bounced harmlessly off its armor. Ryan cursed. "That's not working." Lyrak gritted his teeth. "It was built to withstand an army. We can't fight it the normal way." Ryan scanned the room. There had to be something. A weak point. An opening. Then he saw it. On the Guardian's back, beneath the glowing red runes, was a small panel, an access point. "That's our target," Ryan muttered. "But getting behind that thing won't be easy." Xyra, still shaky, lifted a hand. A faint glow surrounded her fingertips. "I can help," she whispered. Ryan's eyes widened. "Are you strong enough?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped forward, her eyes glowing brighter. The Guardian turned toward her, raising its weapon. Before it could attack, Syra unleashed a wave of telekinetic energy, slamming into the machine's chest. The force pushed the Guardian back a few feet, buying Ryan and Lirak the opening they needed. "Go!" Syra gasped, sweat beading on her forehead. Ryan didn't hesitate. He sprinted forward, dodging another wild swing from the Guardian's blade. Lirak followed, keeping fire on the machine's head to distract it. Ryan leaped onto the Guardian's back, grabbing hold of the access panel. His fingers scrambled against the smooth surface, finding a latch. The Guardian roared, trying to shake him off. Ryan gritted his teeth, holding on with everything he had. Finally, the panel clicked open, revealing a mess of exposed wires and circuitry. Come on, come on." Ryan pulled out his combat knife and jammed it deep into the wiring. The Guardian froze. Its glowing red eyes flickered. The ancient runes on its body dimmed. For a moment, there was silence. Then, with a low mechanical groan, the Guardian collapsed. Ryan tumbled off just as the massive machine hit the ground, smoke rising from its broken body. Lirak let out a shaky laugh. That was insane. Hydra, now leaning against the wall, managed a weak smile. "We need to go. More will come." Ryan pulled himself to his feet, breathing hard. Agreed. The final stretch. They ran through the corridor, following Lirak's lead. The alarms had changed. Korvac's forces were now on full alert. Ryan knew they were running out of time. Up ahead, a massive hangar door loomed before them. Beyond it was their way out. But as they approached, a deep, chilling voice echoed through the intercom. "Leaving so soon?" Ryan's blood went cold. Lirak muttered under his breath. "Korvac." The intercom crackled. "You really thought you could take my prize and walk away? You disappoint me, human." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Open the damn door, Lirak." Lirak's fingers flew over the control panel. Almost. There. The door began to rise, revealing the hangar beyond. A row of sleek, black ships lined the platform. Freedom. But behind them, the sound of approaching footsteps filled the air. Dozens of heavily armed soldiers stormed into the corridor, weapons raised. Ryan clenched his fists. "Guess we're not done yet." The princess wakes up. The hangar doors creaked open, revealing the vast docking bay beyond. Sleek black warships lined the platform, their polished hulls gleaming under the harsh white lights. The hum of engines filled the air. Some ships were already preparing for launch. Ryan's eyes locked onto a small, fast attack shuttle at the far end of the hangar. That's their way out. But they had bigger problems. Behind them, Korvac's elite soldiers stormed into the corridor, their heavy boots pounding against the metal floor. Their weapons, plasma rifles, energy blades, shock batons, glowed in the dim light. And at the front of them stood Warlord Korvac himself. Ryan had seen images of him before, but nothing compared to seeing the monstrous warlord in person. He was massive, nearly 7 feet tall, his body wrapped in thick black armor etched with ancient battle runes. His reptilian skin was dark red, his eyes a burning yellow, filled with fury. Jagged scars ran across his face and arms, each one a testament to the countless battles he had survived. But the most disturbing part, Korvac was smiling. "Leaving so soon." His voice rumbled through the hangar, smooth yet dripping with menace. Ryan stepped forward, placing himself between Korvac and Kyra. His grip tightened on his rifle. "You really thought you could take my prize and escape?" Korvac continued, his eyes gleaming with amusement. "I must admit, I didn't expect you to make it this far. But it ends here, human." The soldiers raised their weapons, surrounding them from all sides. Ryan cursed under his breath. They were trapped. Lirak shifted uncomfortably, gripping his side where his injuries still bled. Tell me we have a plan." Ryan's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and backed against a wall. Zyra was still weak. She could barely stand, let alone fight. But surrender wasn't an option. Ryan glanced at Lirak. "Get her to the ship." Lirak's eyes widened. "What? And leave you?" Ryan smirked. "I'll buy you some time." Before Lirak could argue, Ryan lunged forward, pulling the trigger, fighting against the odds. Ryan's rifle spat fire, plasma rounds cutting through the air. The first shot hit a soldier square in the chest, sending him crashing to the ground. The hangar erupted into chaos. Blaster fire sizzled through the air, exploding against walls and ships. Ryan dove behind a supply crate, ducking as enemy fire rained down. Lirak grabbed Xyra and sprinted toward the ship, using the chaos as cover. Gorvak didn't flinch. He watched with amusement, stepping forward with slow, deliberate movements. "You are brave, human," he mused, drawing a massive energy sword from his back. The blade crackled with violet electricity, pulsing with raw power. Ryan's pulse quickened. He'd fought plenty of aliens before, but none like Gorvak. Still, he grinned. "Yeah, well, I'm not known for being smart." Gorvak charged. Ryan barely dodged in time as the massive sword came down, slicing through the crate he was using for cover. The metal exploded into molten shards. Ryan rolled away, firing as he moved, but Gorvak was too fast. The warlord swung again, forcing Ryan to leap backward. "You're quick," Gorvak said, his voice mocking, "but you can't outrun me forever." Ryan knew he was right. Gorvak was bigger, stronger, and better armored. But Ryan wasn't here to win. He was here to stall. Zyra awakens. Meanwhile, Lirak dragged Zyra into the attack shuttle. The ship was small but powerful, built for speed. He slammed the controls, initiating the startup sequence. The engines roared to life. Zyra groaned, gripping her head. The moment she sat in the co-pilot seat, something changed. Her eyes flashed with energy. "Lirak," she whispered, "I can feel it. My power, it's coming back." Lirak's breath hitched. "What are you saying?" Zyra clenched her fists, and for the first time, Lirak felt the air around them shift. Something ancient and powerful stirred inside her. Ryan versus Gorvak. Ryan dodged another brutal strike. Gorvak's sword barely missed his head, slicing through the floor instead. The warlord was relentless. Every swing carried enough force to break bones. Ryan's stamina was fading. His shots barely scratched Gorvak's armor. Then the warlord snarled. "I grow tired of this." Before Ryan could react, Gorvak grabbed him by the throat and lifted him into the air. Ryan struggled, kicking against the warlord's iron grip. His vision blurred as oxygen left his lungs. "You fight well," Gorvak said, almost admiringly, "but you are only human." Ryan's fingers twitched toward his belt, toward the thermal grenade. If he was going down, he was taking Gorvak with him. But before he could activate it, the entire hangar trembled. A pulse of raw energy surged through the air. Gorvak froze. Ryan coughed, gasping as the warlord's grip loosened. Then he saw her. Zyra stood at the entrance of the ship, glowing. Her silver hair flowed wildly, lifted by unseen energy. Her violet eyes burned like twin stars. Her arms trembled as waves of pure telekinetic force radiated from her body. Gorvak's expression darkened. "Impossible," he whispered. Zyra lifted her hand, and the entire hangar shook. The soldiers around them were thrown into the air, crashing into the walls like ragdolls. Metal crates and ships rattled, some even lifting off the ground. Gorvak staggered back, shielding his eyes. Ryan dropped to the floor, coughing. "Well, that's new." Zyra's gaze locked onto Gorvak. "You will not take me again," she said, her voice echoing with power. She clenched her fist, and Gorvak was suddenly launched backward, slamming into a wall with a deafening crash. The warlord groaned, struggling to rise. Ryan, still catching his breath, looked at Syra with newfound respect. "Remind me not to get on your bad side." She smiled faintly. "Get in the ship. It's time to leave." Ryan didn't argue. He sprinted toward the ship, Lirak already in the cockpit, prepping for takeoff. As they lifted off, Ryan glanced back. Gorvac had recovered. He stood at the center of the destroyed hangar, his yellow eyes burning with rage. "This isn't over," he growled. Ryan smirked. Yeah. See you next time." The ship's engines roared, and they blasted into the stars. The last stand. The stolen attack shuttle soared through the night sky, cutting through the atmosphere of Gorvac's fortress world like a knife through darkened silk. The engines roared, their glow leaving a trail of fire against the storm-filled sky. Inside the cockpit, Ryan Carter gripped the controls tightly. The ship was fast, agile, and deadly. But right now, speed was all that mattered. "How long until we're off this planet?" Ryan asked, his voice steady despite the tension in his muscles. Lirak, seated beside him, rapidly worked the ship's navigational system. "Another 60 seconds before we clear the atmosphere. Once we're in space, we can jump to hyperspeed." Ryan exhaled. 60 seconds. It sounded short, but in a battle, it was a lifetime. Because they weren't alone. The hangar doors behind them exploded outward, and in their wake, a fleet of enemy ships emerged. Sleek, black interceptors, Gorvac's personal war fleet, armed with plasma cannons and high-speed thrusters. Ryan grimaced as his scanner flashed red. 5. No. 10. No. 15 enemy ships inbound. Lirak saw it too. "We've got company." Ryan adjusted the controls. "I noticed." The chase begins. The enemy fighters swooped in from behind, their engines flaring as they locked onto the fleeing shuttle. The cockpit blared with warning alarms. Incoming missiles detected. Ryan jerked the controls sharply, sending the shuttle into a spiraling dive just as the first volley of plasma fire streaked through the air. The enemy shots barely missed, skimming past the hull. Lirak cursed. "They're fast." Ryan's hands moved like lightning over the controls. "So are we." He pushed the ship into a steep ascent, aiming for the upper atmosphere. The ship shuddered as the gravity pulled against them, but Ryan didn't slow down. Another warning flashed on the screen. "Lock-on detected." Ryan's heart pounded. "They're locking onto us." Lirak yelled. Ryan gritted his teeth, not for long. With a sudden maneuver, he cut all power to the engines for half a second, letting the ship drop into a freefall. The enemy fighters, unable to react in time, overshot their targets. The moment they passed, Ryan reignited the engines, pulling up into a sharp turn. The ship flipped upside down, bringing the enemy directly into their sights. Ryan squeezed the trigger. Twin laser cannons fired, striking one of the enemy fighters dead on. The sleek interceptor erupted into flames, spinning out of control before detonating in midair. But more were coming. Many more. Zyra's awakening. In the back of the ship, Ira stirred. Her body was still weak, but her mind was awakening. The energy coursing through her veins was unlike anything she had ever felt. She could sense them, the enemy ships outside, the hostile minds piloting them. She closed her eyes, and for the first time since her captivity, she reached out. The battle takes a turn. Ryan dodged another barrage of enemy fire, his reflexes pushed to the limit. The enemy fighters were relentless, swarming like a pack of hungry beasts. Then something changed. The ship's console flickered. The enemy ships hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Ryan frowned. What the? Then a voice filled his mind. Turn left. Now. Without thinking, he obeyed. A plasma missile streaked past, missing the ship by mere inches. If he had hesitated for even a second, they would have been destroyed. Lirak's eyes widened. That was impossible. How did you? Ryan glanced over his shoulder. Zyra was glowing. She stood in the center of the ship, her hands raised, her eyes burning with violet energy. She wasn't just awake, she was controlling the battlefield. Zyra's voice was calm, but powerful. "Keep flying. I'll handle the rest." Ryan didn't question it. He focused on piloting. Zyra's mind stretched outward, touching the consciousness of every enemy pilot. She didn't need weapons. She had them. One by one, the enemy fighters veered off course, their pilots suddenly confused, lost, disoriented. Some crashed into each other. Others simply stopped moving, frozen in space. Gorvak's war fleet was crumbling without a single shot fired. Ryan whistled under his breath. That is terrifying. And also incredible. Lyric grinned. I knew she was strong, but this. He shook his head in awe. This is something else. Zyra lowered her hands, her breath coming in slow, steady waves. We're clear, she said softly. They won't follow. Ryan checked the scanners. She was right. The enemy ships were gone. The escape. The shuttle finally broke through the atmosphere, emerging into the vast expanse of space. Ahead, the stars stretched out endlessly. Lyric entered the jump coordinates. We're ready. Ryan glanced at Tyra. Where to, Princess? She hesitated for a moment, then smiled. Somewhere safe, but this isn't over. Ryan nodded. Yeah, I figured. With a final pull of the lever, the ship's engines flared to life, and with a brilliant flash of light, they vanished into hyperspace. A new beginning. The stars stretched endlessly as the stolen shuttle surged through hyperspace, leaving the war-torn world of Gorvak behind. The hum of the ship's engines filled the quiet, steady, and reassuring after the chaos of battle. Ryan Carter sat in the pilot's chair, his fingers resting loosely on the controls. He let out a slow breath, staring out at the shimmering blue void of hyperspace. For the first time since this mission had begun, he allowed himself to relax. They had done it. They had escaped. But at what cost? The aftermath. Lyric sat slumped in the co-pilot's chair, pressing a cloth against the deep wound on his side. His breathing was steady, but Ryan could tell the fight had pushed him to his limits. You good? Ryan asked without looking over. Lyric let out a weak chuckle. Define good. Because if good means feeling like I got run over by a grav tank, then yeah, I'm fantastic. Ryan smirked but didn't push further. Instead, his gaze drifted to the back of the ship. Zyra stood in the middle of the small passenger bay, her hands pressed against the metal walls, as if she were feeling the very energy of the ship itself. The glow in her violet eyes had faded, but something about her had changed. She looked stronger now, not physically, but mentally. For weeks, she had been a prisoner. Drained, broken, experimented on. Now she was awake. Ryan unbuckled his harness and stepped toward her. How are you feeling, Princess? Zyra turned, her silver-white hair catching the dim cockpit lights. She met his gaze, studying him as if trying to understand something deeper. Tired, she admitted, but free. Her words carried weight. Ryan nodded. That's the important part. Zyra tilted her head slightly. And you? You risk your life for me, a stranger, a princess of a dying empire. Why? Ryan leaned against the cold metal wall, arms crossed. He wasn't sure how to answer that. At first, this had been just another mission. A dangerous one, sure, but he'd done plenty of those. But somewhere along the way, between fighting through Gorvak's fortress, escaping impossible odds, and watching Zyra awaken into something far greater than just a captive princess, things had changed. Ryan sighed, because it was the right thing to do. Zyra studied him for a moment before nodding. That's rare these days. He chuckled. Yeah, I hear that a lot. A grim reality. The moment of calm didn't last long. The console in the cockpit beeped, flashing red. Ryan and Lyric turned at the same time. Incoming transmission. Lyrek muttered, tapping the control panel. It's encrypted, but it's coming from the Galactic Alliance. Ryan's jaw tightened. Patch it through. The screen flickered, and a holographic projection of General Harlow appeared. His face was etched with exhaustion, his uniform slightly disheveled. "Captain Carter," Harlow began, his voice heavy. "I see you made it out alive." "Yeah," Ryan said, "but something tells me this isn't a congratulations call." Harlow exhaled sharply. "I wish it were, but we have bigger problems." Ryan exchanged a glance with Lyrek, then back to the general. "Go on." Harlow leaned forward. "You need to get Xyra to a secure location. Fast." Xyra stepped forward, frowning. "Why?" The general's expression hardened. "Because Gorvak isn't stopping. He's declared war on the Alliance. He's calling for the complete eradication of all who oppose him. He's uniting warlords, mercenary clans, and rogue fleets under one banner." Ryan felt a cold weight settle in his chest. This wasn't just about one mission anymore. This was the beginning of something much bigger. Lyrek cursed under his breath. "So he's done playing warlord, and now wants to be an emperor." Harlow nodded grimly. "Exactly. And Xyra, she's the only one who can stop him." Ryan turned to Xyra. Her face was calm, but he could see the storm behind her eyes. She knew what this meant. She wasn't just a survivor anymore. She was a symbol, a beacon of hope for her people. And a target, the weight of destiny. Xyra's fingers tightened into fists. "So I have no choice," she whispered. Ryan took a step closer. "You always have a choice, Princess." She looked at him, something unreadable in her expression. "Then what would you do, Captain Carter, if you were in my place?" Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know. But I do know one thing. Gorvak's not going to stop hunting you. Even if you run, he'll find you. So the way I see it," he gave her a lopsided grin, "you either run forever, or you turn around and punch him in the face." Lyrek let out a weak laugh. "I like that option." Xyra blinked. Then she actually smiled. It was small, but real. And in that moment, Ryan knew she had already made her decision. She turned back to the holographic image of Harlow. "Where do we start?" Harlow's expression softened. "Good. I'll send coordinates to a safe rendezvous point. We'll regroup and plan our next move. But be careful. Orvak's forces are already moving. They won't let you go that easily." Ryan smirked. "They never do." The transmission cut off. The cabin fell silent. Sarah exhaled, looking out at the endless stars. "This isn't the end, is it?" Ryan shook his head. "Nope. Just the beginning." Lyrek stretched his arms. "Then I guess we better get ready for a war." Xyra turned to Ryan. "Will you fight with us?" Ryan held her gaze for a long moment. Then he grinned. "Wouldn't miss it." With a flick of the controls, the ship's engines roared to life once more. And as the stars stretched before them, one thing was certain. This was only the beginning.